Welcome back to the greenhouse here at Temple University Ambler. My name is Ben Snyder, and I'm the manager of the Greenhouse Education and Research Complex. Today we'll be looking at some plants that are commonly referred to as trees, but botanically are actually not trees, but rather giant herbs. So the botanical definition that makes a plant a tree or a woody plant is a plant that undergoes secondary growth. So plant growth can be divided into two different types, primary and secondary. Primary growth occurs from apical meristems, either in shoot tips or roots, and generally increases the height or the length of the plant. The other type of growth is secondary growth. This occurs from lateral meristems or cambial regions and increases the thickness or girth of stems, roots, and things like that. So not all plants undergo secondary growth. Many plants, garden perennials, things that you normally think of being herbaceous plant materials, typically only undergo primary growth. So think of plants like marigolds or annuals. They will only undergo primary growth. They don't have that secondary growth to increase the thickness of their stems. This is in contrast to trees like oak trees or woody shrubs that live multiple years, and then each year the stem or trunk will keep getting thicker and thicker. If you've ever looked at a tree cookie or a stump that was cut down and counted the rings of a tree, that you're essentially looking at is secondary growth. Each of those rings represents 1 year of lateral growth from the cambial region. So the first plant we're going to look at today is a banana. So we're looking at one of our variegated bananas in our collection right now. This is Musa AA, a variegated banana, which is actually flowering and fruiting right now. So many people refer to bananas as banana trees, but botanically, they do not produce secondary growth. They're monocot plants, and generally monocots will not produce secondary growth. But you may look at this and think, well, it looks like a tree. This one is about 12 feet tall. It has a relatively large stem or trunk-like feature that comes out of the pot. But if you look closely, all that trunk is made out of leaf bases. So each time a new leaf is added to the plant, it increases the thickness of the trunk. So that way the trunk is actually not increasing from a lateral meristem, but rather as each new leaf added, the trunk increases in width. So that way it can reach its heights of 15 to 20 feet easily and not fall over, but yet does not produce secondary growth. So look at another plant in our collection that is often referred to as a tree, but is actually also an herb, and that is papaya. So we have a few papayas in our collection. We'll look at one over here that's currently flowering. All right, so here is our flowering and fruiting papaya. Again, this one looks even more tree-like than the banana. It seems to have a distinct trunk. In nature, these can be 15 to 20 feet tall or higher, so definitely tree-like. But again, they do not produce secondary growth. They do increase in width, but it's not lignified wood. So the definition of wood botanically is lignified or hardened xylem cells. So xylem is typically the water transportation method in plants. So the xylem carries water from the roots to the top of the plant, and then the phloem carries water back, water and sugar and nutrients back down to the roots. As a plant ages, in a plant that gets secondary growth, that xylem will become lignified or hard and act more as a supporting structure for the plant as opposed to a water transportation system. But in papaya, that xylem does not become lignified, it does not become wood, so hence is not a woody plant, and thus not a tree, but rather a giant herb. So just something kind of cool to look at. And then the last plant we'll look at is another edible plant that people often refer to as a tree, but again, not a tree. And this is a date palm. So this is a plant right here that people usually refer to these as palm trees. But again, palms are monocots like a banana and do not produce secondary lateral growth. So you can see here at the base, all these leaves create leaf sheaths that wrap around the central trunk or stem of the palm and increase the width that way. The trunk itself is not actually increasing width from lateral meristems. So now you know some fun trivia that you can quiz your friends with on what is a tree and what is not a tree.